for those who've gone through the steps of transitioning and the anesthesia is worn off and maybe the bliss that they had, a few weeks that lasted or maybe even years or decades after the surgery is done. And they realize, well, I didn't really solve my problems. I just created additional ones. I just treated my body as this kind of false target of intervention because it's so hard to fight against anxiety and PTSD and autism and all these things. You're like shadow boxing your opponent. Whereas if like the body is the target of intervention, you can kind of feel like you're getting somewhere. Hey, I'm starting to look more masculine. I feel like I'm making progress. But once they realize that progress was more regress, and they regret these things, and they look at the scar tissue and the infertility and everything that follows and their voice that won't go back to the norm, what recourse do they have? Because I've heard people say, well, look, you can't sue the doctor because it was legal. So, I mean, what are you going to do? You can write a blog about it and complain. But, what recourse do the kids have when they got, for example, like the girls that have gotten double mastectomies at Oakland's Children's Hospital at the age of 12, or if a girl's 16 and going through medical transitioning, or a boy? What recourse do these kids have? When do they come to their senses and realize like, wow, that was not helping me. They just collaborated with my mental illness instead of actually treating me. What recourse do those kids have?
Sure. Well, the primary duty of a doctor is to do no harm. And so if your doctor has harmed you, it depends on what state you live in, but there are malpractice laws, there's informed consent laws. And so those would be very relevant. And you'd want to look at what was it they told you about the potential harms for these interventions and what are the lasting effects. A lot of people have been told it's a pause, that you're pausing your puberty. Mm-hmm. And so you can take these hormone blockers, and that what the blockers are is typically it's an intravenous, it's a surgery. They put you on anesthesia. We've had cases where the family has said, take it out. The side effects are terrible. And the doctors refuse to take it out. They refuse to take it out. They want the child fully sterilized. And so then they'll take it out. So you have these terrible cases where the doctors refuse to reverse before it's too late. And they'll tell you it's a pause. And by the time the intervention, the course has run through, you've been sterilized, your voice has changed with the hormones or whatever. And they'll say, well, what we meant by pause was a metaphysical pause. And so now you can present as whatever sex you like. And so you're living whatever sex. It's all totally malleable and fluid, quote unquote. And they're like, well, when do I get my period back? Or if you're a young boy and you get the hormone blockers as an 11 to 13-year-old boy, your sex anatomy will never grow larger than it was at that age. So you could be 17 with the penis of an 11-year-old boy, and you'd say, well, when am I going to get an erection? And well, it's a metaphysical pause. You're never going to actually be able to perform sexually or have a family or any of those things. But, you can live your best life today as a man, if that's what you want. But no, you're never going to have the male anatomy of a grown man, of course. And so they've been lied to. There's also lots of lies about the side effects to the body. So when you block the hormones, something that's really interesting, is these hormone blockers, puberty blockers. They're surgical free chemical interventions. They have the same effect of a surgery called nullification. Nullification surgery is really horrific. It's when a surgeon takes a smooth, continuous skin to cover the abdomen to the groin. And it's created following a castration or what's called a vaginectomy. In other words, the genitalia are replaced by nothing. Nullification is the perfect symbol for this ideology behind the trans movement, because it's the pursuit of the Latin nullum, which means nothing, or relatedly nihil, the root of the English word nihilistic or nihilism. Trans ideology is animated by this very profound nihilism that denies human nature and enables barbarism in the name of progress. And puberty blockers do the same thing. They're surgery-free chemical interventions with the same effect as the nullification. Sterilization with system-wide hormonal failure. And so the puberty blocker medication comes the form of the monthly injections or these implants. And it simulates the activity of these hormones, and it shuts down the hypothalamus in your brain. And so if the doctors are not telling the children about the side effects of doing something like shutting down the hypothalamus That's very relevant legally because the hypothalamus is this almond-sized structure in your brain, and it's a primal structure that controls all the hormones in your body, your sexual development, your emotions, your fight or flight response, your bone development, your cardiovascular system. All of that is controlled. And so when you block the development of that part of your body, you're also blocking the bone structure growing. Your bones become brittle. We had a witness in one of our cases who was a detransitioner, and he dropped a water bottle on his foot, just a plain plastic water bottle, and he broke 8 bones in his foot. I mean, the brittle bones you have the rest of your life. I mean, there are so many side effects that have not been disclosed. So those are just sort of the type of things that you can look at. You can call a lawyer. You can see, is there medical malpractice coverage for this? Is there lack of conformed consent for this?
Hey, if you enjoyed that clip, I'd encourage you to please like, subscribe, share, comment. That helps show it to more people. And then also submit your question at the email live@chastity.com, or submit your question or call in through our Discord server so we can talk to you in person on our next show.